Welcome back to the Tim Macy Show, which, Logan, just so you know, a lot of people are like, oh, the Tim Macy Show. That sounds arrogant. And I'd like to just for the record say, it's just because I couldn't think of a name. Like all these people have cool podcast names, the Game Changer Podcast or the Billionaire Boys Club or something. And I'm like, I got nothing. Just Tim Macy. My name, I guess, will work. So there's no vanity in it. I just couldn't think of anything else.
If it makes you feel better, all the LLCs I have are something like 901 Mason LLC, 3838 West Ave LLC. Same thing. That's all I got. People have
Yeah, I do.
things where you look it up, you're like, wow, that's so clever. Mine's like the address.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you didn't pick up that line there, Logan is a good friend of mine. I've known him for years. A very special person to me, not just because we're friends and send each other stupid things from Instagram, but more importantly, we've done life together and we've done it in different directions, which is interesting, but we've just grown together. And, I think people talk a lot about getting in the right room and all that fun stuff and getting around the people that are where you want to be. I can tell you my most meaningful relationships are the people that kind of started where I was at. And then we've gone and we're successful together. And so
Yeah.
I like meeting people that are successful, and that's great. If we're both successful, like we meet each other, it's cool. But man, those people that, you were living in a 900 square foot apartment, driving your 2002 Ford Explorer with your flip flops and your thing, right? Just buying $5,000 lots at the auction and
you're
flipping
pulling
them
up in your Corolla in the same shirt you wore yesterday, trying to cut a deal. And I'm like, who's this guy? I kind of like him, but he's probably got a long way to go. But then I'm looking at myself like, well, I kind of feel good about myself, but I probably got a long way to go. Like these two dudes trying to find their way in the world.
Yeah. And so man, I love those. And that's kind of been our journey. I've done more things in the brokerage space and the residential real estate space. And you have just become a very special, unique individual in the investment space. And, I think that one thing that I've learned is that betting on winners and going all in on the great people and not trying to just be friends and have connections with everybody, but going all in on your most meaningful, best relationships has moved mountains. And you're definitely one of those, because even though we were both early on, we both were just getting started. We were not a big deal to anybody, but maybe our significant other. Yet I think we kind of both knew we were both going places. And so we kind of latched onto each other there. But
Yeah.
I want to know, I kind of know your story, but I want to know the real origin story from, you working in an oil field to when we met on the first deal that we did together when you were just buying stuff at the tax auction.
Yeah, fair. Well, I'll echo some of the stuff you said. You've already done it, so I won't waste a lot of time. But yeah, I mean, I've loved being your friend. We've had such a fun thing where our families grow together, our minds grow together, our wives have grown together, our kids have, and our careers. And it's neat to be able to talk to somebody that you've had along that path with you. And, there's so much we get to talk about. We both have radically different perspectives on a lot of different things. But to me, I think that's part of what makes us connect. Some people that makes them go the other direction, but I don't know. That's why I think it's really special. So I appreciate all that. To make it short, I came from the oil field, but that was post big inheritance, big win, big loss. I inherited all this money from my grandparents' side of the family. I sold the family farm and balled out with a bunch of, almost 7 figures worth of cash. I was buying Porsches and houses and unfortunately lots of drugs and alcohol along with that. And surprisingly, I burned my share of my grandparents' inheritance that they earned over their entire lifetime. It was actually 2 generations. I burned it all in 3 years. And man, it was just a humiliating, humbling place. And I didn't have a lot of any recovery at the time. It was a really bad place. And I spent time getting sobered up. And I finally got this opportunity to work with a buddy of mine in the oil field. And that was life changing because I was the first time at 20, God, how old was I? I'm 42 now. So that was the heck. Yeah. Early 30s at that point. First time I'd really been sober in my life. First time I just had things kind of together, and I'm living in a little apartment, got a job in the oil field, making almost six figures when I started, deep into the six figures after I got there for a while. And I was just scared to lose all this money that, it took me a year to earn 100 grand, and I burned through 3 or 4 times that a year in multiple years. And I looked at it and it was sobering. I thought, oh my gosh, this is how much, like, I would burn huge amounts of money. It could take me a whole lifetime to rebuild what they just gave me and I wasted. It was humbling. So at that point, I started to be almost like miserly, and I'm saving and I'm looking for ways to grow and invest it.
Hey, just real quick. What he means by miserly is cheap. Logan's cheap. Let's just keep moving.
At that point, it was cheap. At this point, it's changed a bit, but value matters now on the spin. However, at the time, it was cheap and I was looking for value then. But things changed a lot. And I went out to look for investments, and I really cared about risk. And I had to learn, like, where am I going to find these opportunities to protect my downside? And, that's how I kind of stumbled upon the deep value investing, is what a lot of Wall Streeters call it. For me, it's significantly discounted assets. Sometimes they're quality, sometimes they're low quality. But the point is, I'm getting them at such a low price that I can always liquidate and get my money back. So my investment principle is always, always, always safe. And my upside comes the day I buy, because I picked up equity. Now I might find opportunity to grow that, but when you're in the money from day one, there's so much protection. And, I started to find these vacant lots that I thought were that opportunity. And that really became huge. I was buying them for $5,000-$10,000 a piece. The market moved quickly in San Antonio at that time. I started selling them for $50,000 to $200,000 a piece. And I got laid off in the oil field. So at that moment, I had a little confidence because I'd been working and earning and I had a little money in the bank. And I thought, man, let's take this show on the road. Let me become a real estate guy. And that's how that transition started. So that's when you and I met. Was shortly after that. I was painting and repairing the cabinets in this little, 1,200 square foot house I was flipping downtown, and you mosey in there with some investors from out of state. And, that's where our journey started.
Yeah. No, man, that's so funny. There's three unique things that stood out to me in what you just said that I want to make sure people don't breeze over. One, he said when he was talking about our relationship that we have radically different views. One of the things I think is important is that you're not friends with people that think like you do. So Logan and I are great friends. We've got similar businesses. We're both in real estate, and we have radically different opinions and perspectives on different things. And that's a good thing. I think what I worry about in today's world is that it's so easy to just gravitate and get in this bubble of people that agree with you, think like you do, and that's it. And so it's very important to have great friends that think differently than you do and that challenge you to think differently, because that's how you grow. The other thing is, you breezed over it, and honestly, we've never gone into it too much. And Rafe, let's put this one as explicit, because Logan, you were a fuck up when you blew all that money, you were doing drugs and all this other stuff. And I'm using the F word because its emphasis should be put on this.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because I can't stand be yourself. Be true to yourself. Fuck be yourself. Be your best self. Because if you blowing all that money, doing all that stuff, could have turned around and just said, oh, I'm a fuck up. This is who I am. I'm going to be myself. And instead you said, I'm going to be somebody better than this. I'm going to be my best self. And so just like you made this crazy decision to be a completely different person and be the person that you wanted to be, which totally, in my opinion, transforms your life.
100%.
And then the other thing was deep value. I think there's so much hype. Cut that out, Rafe. There's so much hype around investing that people get bought into things that seem sexy. And, oh, this could go up. Bitcoin could go through the roof. Dogecoin could go up. Buy this thing and speculate. And the best investors that I know, when we talk about real estate, for instance, somebody's like, hey, I got this house. I think it's a deal. I think I put work into it. I think I'd do this. I'd redo the cabinets. I'd do that, and I'd sell it, and I'd make money. And one of my metrics for is it a good deal is, Logan, if you bought that house and you didn't touch it and you had to stick it on the market tomorrow, could you sell it for more than you bought it for? And if the answer to that's not yes, then it's not a deal. You know what I mean? Or not a deep value deal. You want to get used to buying things for less than what they're worth.
Right. For me, it gives you a margin of safety because we're humans. Things go wrong. And I've been doing this for 10 years, and I can't tell you how many times I plan a project or estimate a budget or something, and it costs more than I expected. And I got contingencies in there. I know what I'm doing. I got some of the best people on my team or the best third party contractors, and you still make mistakes. And what you're trying to do is account for all of those in such a large way that you're protected, because the number one rule in investing is never risk principal. And a lot of people would argue with me, but if you go look at all the greats of Wall Street, that is their primary, never risk principal.
Yeah. And I look at every deal. I've broke even on something, and I think I lost a little bit on another one. But other than that, I've never taken like an awful loss on a property.
Yeah.
But I can look at, I represented people that have, and it always goes back to they should have paid less for it.
So
I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes they mess up the deal and everything else, but so much of it goes back to the principle of you make your money when you buy.
let me give you an example. So you're familiar with the deal, and I'll tell you this one. You and I are in a land development deal together, 100 acres. It'll be entitled for 237 houses, what it is. And we actually should have our development agreement signed by city government in about 3 weeks. It's already passed
Woo.
council vote and all that stuff. So great news. But on that particular deal, I bought it for probably 20, maybe 30% less than it was worth. And a lot of folks, the multiple when we sell this thing is 4 to 5 times what the original, it's 3 or 4 times what the original entry point is. So folks say, oh my gosh, you're gonna make so much money on this value add, like it's a home run. And that's true. But what if? What if we go to the municipality and they say, we changed our mind, we don't want to approve you for that many homes? What if the bond project was going to bring a sewer line up there? Doesn't happen. What if all this stuff? And those things are real.
What if people stop moving to Texas?
Yeah, right. It sounds crazy, but you know what? If someone would have told you in 2000, what if a Spanish flu comes and wipes out our
Yeah.
economy and throws us into tailspin for the next 24 months? What if happens? So I like to
Yeah.
account for that. So instead of paying 8, 9 million for the land, I wanted something for 6 or 7 range. And by being able to do that, what I can do is I can come to you, who's a close friend, who I would never risk a nickel of your I wouldn't risk mine, but I damn sure wouldn't risk yours. I can come to you and say, put some of your hard-earned family's heritage savings into my deal, because I'm going to make you money, but I've got so much protection. We're buying it so far below value that if my development agreement doesn't go the way I want, my fee developer gets hit by a bus, and COVID happens again, I can still take our investment and go dump it on the open market and sell it for a price that will give us all of our money back. And the money we spent along the way, I'll recover all that. And we might actually make a couple bucks, but our liquidation value protects us on the bottom end.
Yeah.
I would take money out of my mom's retirement account to do that. And I ain't no scammer that would normally do that. I don't touch people's money. But that's the way you can get into a deal like that that's ultra safe. Now, some people will say, you're not taking enough risk. If you would take more risk, you can go bigger. And I don't know that that's true. I mean, you've seen our company grow. We've had exponential growth over the last 7 or 8 years. And because I didn't take a deal that had some risk attached to it, I was always ready for the next home run. And we got some sick home runs here, but I wasn't taking everything that came across my desk. I was saying, that's the home run. That's the home run. And I think I've accounted for all the deals that I haven't done and could have done good on. I've accounted for all those in the deals that we did do.
And I think, it's funny watching your progress, because I have seen the Facebook conversations back and forth. And like, we have had conversations about this stuff too. And I've seen people, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, when you were always cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out. You never were taking loans or leverage. And you hear a lot of people talk about leverage so you can raise your returns. And you
Right.
never did. And so there are these back and forths of people like, oh, you should take leverage and you should, and I've seen your business grow a lot faster than a lot of other people who were talking about leverage and returns. And it's almost simpler. Like you're saying, your strategy and approach has always been so simple, which has always been fun. It's just like buy stuff for less than what it's worth, and then you can make a lot more money. And then all you do is hit home runs. But if people are listening to this, they're like, okay, this sounds great, but how do you buy stuff for less than what it's worth? Everybody would buy a house for 70% of what it's worth. Everybody would buy a piece of land for 60% of what it's worth. But nobody does that. So what specialties, what things, what do you bring to the table that allows you to buy deep value opportunities?
I think the primary, very top, most important thing is you have to understand how to value things. If you can value them, people can do their best to value it. But if you value it accurately and absolutely almost all the time, you know if somebody else's valuation is on or off. And I would say at least 50% of the time, someone thinks they're doing their best to value it. They might even have a broker, they might have a specialist, or they just might be smart. But I understand where the real exact value is. And that might be from value add. More times, though, it's from just actual market value on complicated assets. That's the most important part, because if I can hit the nail on the head and someone just misses the mark, I can pick up 25% like that. So that's it. The first one. Now, the second one also accounts for a large amount of my acquisitions. It's finding things with problems. And if you can find something with problems, you can usually get a discount because of those problems. And because there's not a really great way to value things with problems, that is all about your negotiation strategies and how simple you're going to make it on the person with problems. Can they just walk away right now or tomorrow or the next day and be done with the problem? You get reasonable money. If you can make the deal like that for them, you'd be surprised. I mean, I do it 100 or 200 times a year where people just say, I'm out. Here you
Get this
go.
headache out of my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
That can work with
Yeah.
businesses. It can work with real estate. It can work with buying claims from people against others or businesses or disputes or in lawsuits or bankruptcy. Anybody who's got something of value and they got problems, that's an opportunity if you can make it work for them too.
Well, one of the things you've done is become an absolute expert in these problems. And that allows you to take advantage of these situations. But that wasn't always the case. I mean, you started out buying vacant lots at the tax sale. And so you had to learn how to do that. And then you probably had to learn that what is it? IRS loans stay with the property and like these different things. You learned like these little different aspects of the tax sales. And now, however many years later, your knowledge on how to open up a landlocked lot, on how to, deal with a property that's got 26 heirs that don't want to talk to each other, and the legal system and all that other stuff that you've learned is what makes you a resource to get these things done.
So folks say investing yourself, and you hear that a lot. It's almost like when you hear it again, you're like, oh, I've heard that before. But I'll tell you what that looks like. So when you've got excess cash, I've always kept my living expenses a lot lower than what my earning power looked like. And when I was making a little bit of money, that happened. Today I make a lot more money and that's still happening. But when I had excess cash, I wouldn't go buy the fancy shoes or the Lambo or the G-Wagon or whatever. I would take that extra money and I would invest it in myself. And it didn't look like a lot of people would think. Some people think it's buying a course or going to college or whatever. I was willing, I'd find assets that had problems and I would get a contract on it and I would go pay an attorney by the hour to help me fix these problems. And some people see it as a lawyer's fixing the problems. I saw it as, this is my opportunity to learn from this lawyer and look at the resources he's using, what books, what websites he's going to, who he's calling for these answers, how this is happening. I'd go workshop with the lawyer at $300-400 an hour. For me, that was investing in me because I learned, now I didn't pay them to solve the problems. I learned with them how to solve the problems. And I mean, I spent at that time, tens of thousands of dollars, $300-400 at a time. Today, dude, I've probably spent over $1 million, easily over $1 million in legal fees. I'm between 20 and 40,000 a month in legal fees now from the attorneys. I'm involved in anywhere from 1 to 2 dozen lawsuits at a time today. And we are ripping through these problems, just slinging solutions at them like nobody's business. But I started without a plan, without knowing where it was going, but I was willing to spend money to go learn with these lawyers. And that's where I was really investing in a skill at that point.
It's funny. I'm going to use this word, and the people that are on my calls all the time and listen to me, they're going to turn it off because they're tired of hearing it. But curiosity is one of the most powerful things in the world. And I know that you are a curious person. So you don't hand something off to a lawyer and just wait for them to finish it and come back to you. You're very curious about the process. Wait, what does that mean? Wait, what property code does that come from? What actually, why don't you use this property code? Why are you going this way? You're very curious. And along the way, instead of just handing something off to a lawyer to handle it, you are in the weeds. And what's funny too is lawyers are like real estate agents in that we're not all created equal. And dealing with certain ones and being curious and learning the process allows you to know when a lawyer is full of crap and giving you bad advice, right? And so I mean, like, how would you rate your legal expertise in your niche for what you do?
When I was spending all that time with those attorneys and they were teaching me, I was looking at, I learned that they would pick up this big fat book, the estates code, the tax code, the property code, and the probate code. Those are the four codified sets of laws that affect real estate the way I work on it here in Texas. And they were going online, they'd pick up the big fat book on their desk. So I would watch them do that. I would start to go buy those books and read them myself and figure it out. So after some amount of time, I started to understand the functional part of it. And I'm an investor at heart. So I'm applying a business case to it. And while attorneys are really bright people and hard workers, and they claim that they're applying the business case to it, they just don't. And that's no dig at them. That's just not how it works. So you got the judicial system, you have the investor perspective, you have the title company, the insurance perspective, which matters to me because I got to get a lot of this stuff insured. And then you just have a general common sense perspective. And when you take all those together and you look at how do I make a business case out of this, you can find the parts. If it's kind of like the big Venn diagram where all the circles are, where they all overlap in that little spot, that's where I operate. I got to figure out what the lawyer knows and what works and doesn't work. Got to understand how things work in the courts. I got to know the business decision and I got to satisfy many times the title company. And when you start to find the middle of all those, that's where you can figure out how to case manage the attorneys to get what you want instead of handing them the project and they just go run and just give you some result. I got a certain result and you're going to help me get there.
And I don't know how much of that just went over some people's heads.
Yeah.
But here's what I heard. I know if I get a deal in that's got these legal issues and this stuff and everything else, I'm like, we should get a lawyer involved. And then I got to pay a lawyer a retainer, and then they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, yeah, you can't really do much. And I just get nowhere when I've got a property with a bunch of heirs and all these issues. I don't know what to do with it. And this is where knowledge is power, because Logan comes into that same situation. And because of his knowledge, because of his experience, he knows exactly where this thing's going. He has the perspective to know exactly how to handle the situation. And for me, I think that's a big reason why you can get things at a discount. Because, when people say, oh, you're getting something at a discount, you must be stealing from people. Look, if I have a problem with my house, like this house right here, if I found out that it's got airship issues and all this other stuff, I'm going to go have to pay a lawyer a bunch of money. And I don't know if you know this with lawyers, but a lot of times they don't know what to do. And so they go research what to do. And then you're paying them to research your problem because they don't know how to deal with it. And then you spend a ton of money.
The worst part
Yeah.
about that is they don't have experience in that topic. They're researching and
Yeah.
figuring it out. And in my case, after I've done it a lot, I already know that. And I'm more proficient at a lot of this stuff than some of the attorneys. And again, that's no dig at them because I love working with them. They're telling them they're great. But if I have experience in a particular way, they think it's going to go a different way. And I remind them, no, there's some other stuff. So that level of experience and digging deep matters. Let me tell you so I know that you're in the realtor world, the brokerage services mostly. And a lot of the folks paying attention here are looking at it that way. My wife's a realtor and her and my group are incredible at dealing with foreclosure issues. Typically sellers, property owners, let me go back, before they become sellers or property owners, they need to sell their property because they're in foreclosure. They're embarrassed. They don't know what to do. They don't have money for a lawyer. They don't want to call a realtor because they're going to feel stupid. Well, some of the folks in my office are calling these folks and talking to them. Sometimes the best answer is for me to buy the property. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the best answer is to take the property to market, but these folks don't know what to do. Well, how does that matter to a realtor? My wife's a realtor. And my wife can get some of the toughest listings in this town by saying, look, I'm going to help you stop this foreclosure and postpone it with enough time so we can get your property to market so you don't have to sell it to an investor on the cheap. You can go get top dollar, but I've got to teach you how to postpone this foreclosure without incurring huge legal fees and without losing your butt. And for that, she'll get a little bit bigger fee than the typical realtor. But the upside to that is the property owner is going to get the max dollars they can instead of selling to an investor. So when realtors look at that and dig into those questions, you'd be surprised. They can make substantial fees. They're helping somebody and doing really well. And that's how to apply some of these concepts to you guys a little bit more plain and boxed in brokerage world that has tons of ethics and rules around it.
So I think there's two things. There's one, the knowledge, and
Right.
you have to know how to handle these situations. And
And that happens through
there's
digging deep
no,
and being curious, like you're saying. You
yeah,
gotta dig because it's not on the surface.
yeah. And, but the other thing is too, is it just comes from doing the reps. Like I
Yep.
know more about how to do a 1031 exchange, which helps me talk to a owner of a fourplex because I talked to him about a 1031 exchange into a Delaware statutory trust, which works like a REIT, and they can do all this. I only know that because I ran into the wall 10 times not knowing what to do. And I think we like to try to find ways to, and you can shortcut a lot by knowing better people, by learning, by being curious. Like Logan doesn't have to go to law school. He's just gone through all this stuff and been curious and learned
Yep.
like as much as he probably would have in law school just by doing this for your one particular niche. So, but there's no replacement for the work and the experience. So you have to do the work. You have to go out there and try to find deals in order to find them. The second thing, though, is how you deal with people. Because a lot of these situations you're in are not easy
No.
situations. And I think that your ability, like, nobody's going to ask you for help if you can't connect with them. And
Yep.
your ability to connect with someone so then they will ask you for help is important. And I think that's also something that everybody can probably get better at. So tell me what you do that you think helps you connect with people so you can get the opportunity to work with them in these tough spots.
I think this is mega valuable in the brokerage world. And obviously in my distressed real estate world, it's mega valuable too. You've got to show respect to people. You've got to be kind. You've got to get them to open up. There's a special way to communicate where you show them part of your heart, where you show them how you care. And make no mistake, I deliver some of the toughest messages. And I also tell people, I am not normally your low cost provider. I'm one of the most expensive people in this business if I'm going to help you. And I'm not going to hide from the fact that I'm going to make a huge amount of money doing it. However, you can depend on me. I will get this done. And what I say I'm going to do, I do. Now tell me what's going on. Tell me what your biggest problems are. I'm going to find a place where we can work together and get my needs met with your needs. But I'm also telling them up front that if this isn't the right answer, I will walk away and I'll give you the best solution I can and you go do it. And I'm completely okay with that. I got plenty of business. I don't have to do it. So folks can see your heart and they can see your integrity and they can see that if you're honest. And I believe that being transparent in those dealings to me is one of the most important parts. People have told me there are people that will pay more for the property, but I want to work with you because you know what you're doing. You're not going to pull the rug out from under us and you're solid. Now you ask some of the defendants in the lawsuits that I'm in, where I'm going head to head with people for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars these days. And they're going to tell you, God, that guy's an SOB. But I'll tell you what, none of them will say that I ever lied. None of them will say that I ever was deceitful. And none of them will say that I pulled the rug out from under them. I was fair, but firm. And some of these folks hate me, but they still have respect for me. And they tell me that in the end. So I think that matters.
And one thing that
Okay.
I always see, because I started in the investment side of things, is how we met. I was trying to find investment properties. I was making offers on properties for investors. And every time, I have a person with a house and I've got an investor that wants to buy it. And I'd have to try to convince the person that this was a good offer. I'd have to try to explain to them why it was a good offer. I'm trying to sell them on why they should take this offer.
And that's
And
tough if it's
instead,
not the top dollar, but there's more to it than that.
I know, but the fact that you come in and say, "Hey, I'm probably not the best offer. You could probably like I'm gonna be maybe the worst offer."
In terms of
Like
price.
but that sounds crazy to people. Like
You know
who
what?
would go in
You know
there?
what it does? Folks come in and they won't tell you that, and they know it. I know it. We all know it. But if I don't say it, they know that I'm holding something back and there's an unspoken thing. There's an elephant in the room, and that causes distrust. But it's unbelievable how many times I tell people, I'm going to be your best offer. I might be your lowest priced offer, but I will be the one that will be solid and deliverable, and I will take care of this. So while I'm not the top dollar, I'm going to be the strongest, most able to deliver. And when you get that elephant out of the room, people say, oh, he's not coming in here trying to play games. He's honest.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say is trust. It doesn't seem like it's not a a normal thing to do. It feels weird. It feels
Yeah.
awkward to go in there when you're trying to get a deal and tell somebody you're going to be the lowest offer. But when I start with that, it immediately builds trust because they're like, oh, well, this guy's not lying. Like he's very honest. And you immediately build trust and you can take people through the process. And curiosity is the thing that I always say, but God, everything revolves around trust. And when I say that, it's like, hey, I'm the lowest offer. Like I'm gonna be the lowest, but just so you know, you're probably gonna have people come in here offer higher and then they're going to string you along and the process isn't going to go and da 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 da. If that's where you want to go, you should do that because I would only want you to pursue what's best for you. Just know,
Yeah.
I'm the lower offer, but I'm the one who'll get it done. How many times have you been brought back into a deal
Oh,
after someone said no to you?
I couldn't even count it. In fact, this last week, there's an industrial property that's got half a dozen owners. They have some real issues. It was getting ready to go to the tax foreclosure sale up in Dallas. And me and another guy working on that deal. It's worth about $1 million. And our offer was less than half that. And the folks went with the higher offer. And I asked a bunch of questions. And it was very apparent to me that the other buyer didn't understand how to complete this transaction. So we explained to him, these are the problems you're going to have. Ask the other buyer these questions. This is the answer you should get. If you don't get those answers, you're going to have problems down the road. And they went back and told me, yes, they didn't give me the right answers, but it's so much more money. I'm going to take a run with it. Well, they called back and they said, we got to go with you. And I didn't rub their nose in the carpet like a puppy dog who made a mess. I didn't do any of that. I just said, I respect your decision. We've already been through the details. I'm going to send you a purchase agreement that has all the information and we are hammering that sucker out for them. But it happens a
Yeah.
lot.
And
People
I
are blinded by the money. And to me, that's one of the biggest rubs about residential brokerage work. Folks always want to say, well, let's put the dollar out. And you and I talked about this a lot. Let's put the price point, the listing at the top dollar. And if we need to lower the price, we can. We have room to negotiate. And I hate that. I always say, get it down, get out of your own way. You don't have to accept the offer. You can always negotiate them up. But when you have a good value out there, get it going. And people have a really hard time getting out of their way because they're just looking at the money. And I understand when you have less money, the dollars seem to matter more, but it really is not what people think it is.
Well, and it makes me think of something my friend Brad McCallum said. Somebody asked him what the most important thing you can do as a new agent is. And he said, and I'm going back to what I think he said, make enough money where you don't need the commission because you operate from a different place when you don't need the deal and you build more trust with someone because they realize you don't need the deal. And all these magical things start happening
Yeah.
once you leave that place of needing the deal. And what's funny, Logan, we have not talked about this. So most of the time I like asking questions that I know the answer to. I don't know the answer to this one or somewhat know the answer, know that we're not going to go down an awful rabbit hole. But I foresee, because you have a team now and you've got other guys working for you, that there's a chance that they have, they're a little hungrier. They need the deal a little bit more than you do. And they may go into a deal and they don't make it happen. They don't close it. They don't get the deal done. And they call you for help. And then they've been on the phone with this person 10 times and you're on the phone with them once. And it magically the deal's done. Has that happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think is the magic behind that happening?
Usually I'm having to just help us get out of our own way. The guys in our office and gals in our office, they work here because they think more like us than a lot of other people. And they've spent time training with us. So they come closer to that than most people would think. But a lot of times I'm doing better at it than they did. And I had a negotiation last week. I rarely called in the negotiations, but the folks came into the office and someone had been working with them on my team, introduced us, and we went through this long thing. And it was interesting. We walked out of there with the same deal we were trying to get in the beginning. We just couldn't quite get it. And the guy that I was talking, or the guy that works with me that was in there, he's, I don't know how you did that. And I said, man, you watched me do this. I had the same pitch as you did, but I had more disclosure involved. I advertised more about things that other people think are expected. I was just much more clear about it. And I hope a light went off in their head, the guy that I was working with in my office. But I think it's easy to get caught up in the salesmanship of it and you start to have the game. And man, I'm not like that. I don't have the game. And I think it's a big difference.
Well, I think one thing too is when we're in these conversations, there's usually something in our head that we hope they don't bring up. Like when we're at a listing appointment, like, I hope they don't give me a hard time about this listing commission I'm going to charge them, this 3% listing fee that I want. I hope they don't bring that up. In the things that are in your head that you hope they don't bring up, it's magical when you just bring it right to the front of the conversation and work back from there.
You're right. You got to address it head on. The other thing is, I'm not here to make a deal. I'm here to find a deal. I'm not here to create the deal. But if the deal's here and it's right for me and it makes sense for them, we're here to identify that and do it. But I'm not here to use these fancy sales tactics to corner you and cause you to give in to me, because if you do, that deal is going to have a hard time surviving anyway. You're going to resent me. We're going to be fighting. And it's hard because when you don't have money early on, you're really trying to build a pipeline for a new salesperson. Man, they're dying for that money. And it's really hard to fake that. So, and I went through renditions early on of, learning that, because I tried some of the stuff, pushing people, cornering people, doing all that stuff, and it didn't work as well. But the moment I could afford to not have to do that, it got so much easier and things really expanded. So I think the trick is, if a person can figure out how to do that early on, earlier than they're financially or personally ready, they get there quicker.
And I think too, it's so much the sales training that we have. And, I came over and did that thing at your office. So one of my big things is I have this idea that people don't enjoy getting their objection handled. We talk about objection handlers all the time. I don't know about you, but I don't enjoy when somebody handles my objection. Like, it doesn't make me feel good. And when I say that, there's another Phil Jones thing that says people do things for their reasons, not yours. And I think a lot of times as salespeople, we want the person to go somewhere. We want our buyer to do something. We want our seller to do something. We want the person to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that. And even though we're being polite, even though we're being nice, humans have this innate ability to pick up on the fact that you're trying to get them to do something. And when you lay it out and allow people to do things for their reasons, not yours, you tend to get people to the place that you want them to go, as long as it's them driving it there. So like that deal you just talked about with the commercial one that you guys came in at the last minute on, it's, look, you're going to do what you're going to do for your reasons, not mine. But at the end of the day, when you approach things like that, so many people will come back and want to work with you. In the real estate space, we're dealing with commission compression. Buyers may have to pay our real estate commissions, which they already have their down payments. They already got their closing costs. They already have all these fees they're worried about. Now they got to pay us. Like, why are they going to work with us? And I can tell you right now, there's going to be a lot of buyer appointments where agents try to talk around it. They try to talk around it instead of saying, yes, you do. And there's a lot cheaper options out there if you're looking for a cheaper agent. I can connect you to some. Here's how we do the process. Here's why we try to make that cost less for you. Here's how we try to help. This is what we've done in the past. But as agents, we're going to try to avoid that conversation. We're going to dance around it. We're going to hope they don't ask that question. And instead, when we take that question head on, and it's the first thing we address, I think it's much more powerful.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So let's get a little tactical on, look, just so you guys know, Logan puts out a ton of content. And that's one of the things that we've probably talked a ton about, because I don't know if he put out a ton of content when we first met. I feel like that's ramped up a lot. Yeah. I like to think I had something to do with it, but probably not. And you give out just everything. And there's this idea of give it all away and people want to come work with you. Like, you don't have to hold any information back. But I say that because Logan's made a ton of money on investing. And if you're really interested in investing and you really want to know the details and the ins and outs, just go follow him. We don't have time to go into the ins and outs.
Logan Fullmer. Just type in my name, Logan Fullmer. I'm the first person that comes up on your Instagram search. I actually still answer all my own DMs unless you DM me ticket or promo. Someone else is responding to that one, but I'm in there all the time, and I would love to see you there. Sorry to cut you off, Tim.
No, it's perfect, because now I don't have to ask you that question at the end. So I would like to hit on a little bit of stuff they were talking about before the show, as far as, forced appreciation and that fun stuff. But when it comes to the ins and outs of doing these deals and all that stuff, all the things that agents probably want and people listening probably want to get from you, or we don't, this is a short time to dig into all those details. But what I will say is, I think you have some great perspective on talking to leads in calling leads and that fun stuff. So, what have you seen people in your office maybe slip up on when they're talking to leads? And then where do you think you've seen improvement and you've done well?
I'll first talk about my experience, but early on, I had no idea what I was doing. And all I'm doing is just calling folks from the lead list, be it I don't know, vacant house, high equity, whatever list, or delinquent tax list or mortgage foreclosure list. And I'm a big believer of a script. I spent some time training on scripts and I really like them and they work in a lot of cases. And I've found that the script that I use now is a lot less professional. It's a lot more humble. It's a lot more curious. And I find that when I do that, people understand I'm a regular old guy. While I might have some really smart questions, that helps bring to light that I'm not an idiot. And you need that because they need to know that you're dealing with someone that's capable. But I start out with telling people who I am and what I'm looking for. And I'm trying to get to the right place and the right person, and maybe they can help me out. And my research has led me here, but can you help fill in some blanks for me? Is this the fact pattern? Is this what's going on? And instead of getting the real salesy type stuff, I kind of do that. And that approach for me has worked a whole heck of a lot more than an aggressive, pushy one. So that's the way mine's evolved over time. And I've literally gone through 4 or 5 renditions of an approach and a script. And now it's much looser. It's much more comfortable.
And I will say too, the amount of people, the disdain for getting a cold call
Yeah.
keeps getting higher, right? Like
Because the cold
peop
call volume's going up.
yeah, people are getting so many stupid calls all the
Yeah.
time that they hate it. So, well, I think when people come out aggressively, and I mean, honestly, you've got a lot of these scripts that were taught years ago that I don't know if they worked back then, but I definitely don't think they work now.
Yeah.
And I think that authentic curiosity is what comes through. I get so many people hit me up and they're telling me about a situation and they're like, Tim, I don't get it. Like, I told them this, I told them that, I told them this. And immediately when an agent starts telling me that, I already know what the problem is
You're
because
telling them
it's
all this
not
shit.
about,
Did you find
yeah,
out what it is they need, what's going on, and be there as some level of a servant?
yeah, it's not about the things you tell people, it's about the questions you ask them.
Yep.
And the questions you ask them are far more important than the things you tell them. And the thing is too though, is even the script questions are like engineered to push people in a direction, right? Are you buying or renting in the area? It's like, why are you being so nosy? We just went on our first date. Why are you going in for the kiss before the check
No.
comes? What do you know?
Yeah.
And I think just being authentically curious in a softer approach is what works.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. The times that I spent on the phone during those phases of my life, I might call someone and say, "Hey, this is Logan. I'm calling you about 123 Main Street. I was looking in the land records. I noticed several issues with it. That's kind of what I specialize in. And this may be a project that fits my model, but I don't know if it's anything you're really interested in dealing with yet, or I don't even know if I got the right person. Maybe can you help me out there? Let's start there." And I want to
Yeah.
establish this is what I do. It might be something I'm interested in. And I'm not trying to flip it on them and tell them, the reverse sales pitch, make them want me. I'm just honestly telling them, I don't even know if it works yet. It might work, but I want to, if I got the right person, let's talk about it and see if it works. And that
So
people open
curiosity.
up so much more than most everything else I tried.
Well, and like we go back to is trust. Curiosity builds more trust than certainty. I own a few properties and I get these phone calls all the time. Hey, I will buy, I will buy 123 Main Street
Right.
cash.
Close quick. No
Cash,
repair.
close quick. Yeah, I will buy it. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it looks like, but I will buy it cash. I am
They
certain
forgot
of
to
it. And
ask you if you want to sell. They forgot to find out if they have the right dude
yeah,
on the phone. They've already dumped all that stuff out and they don't realize that they're talking to the guy that lives 4 doors down and he's a landscaper, not a property owner. They missed all that.
but the other thing is it's just this idea of certainty. It's, hey, are you interested in selling? Because even if I follow up with that, they're like, well, yeah, we are cash buyers and we want to buy your house. It's all certainty. When you call somebody and you say, hey, I'm just a dude and I may have something that could help you with this house? Maybe. I don't know. I'm just looking for more information.
You know what? Let
It's
me
a
give you an
it's a
example of where that trust,
totally different thing. Yeah.
let me give you an example of where that trust goes. I was doing a mastermind deal the other day, and someone asked me, now that you're doing these bigger deals, anywhere from 10 to 30 million, how do you deal with proof of funds if you're going to raise money or something like that? And it occurred to me in that moment, and it was really interesting. I said, I haven't been asked for proof of funds in years. And do you know why that is? I'm having an open conversation about who I am, what my business is, how we operate, giving some really good examples along the way. And I signed $5 million contracts, $7 million contracts today without being asked for proof of funds. That means I
Yeah.
built the rapport, I built the trust, and things went really well in those calls.
I bet you there's a couple people listening like, no way. But it's true.
Yeah.
Because I will say, I don't agree with Logan all the time, but he's right. He's never really lied to me about anything. So I believe it. And that is the thing too, is I think that's why you stick out so much in the investment space, is because there's so many people that are full of crap, or not even full of crap, but they are trying to make themselves seem more successful than they are. It's just a plague in the industry. It's, oh, I need to make myself seem like I'm more successful. And your honesty and in humility, even after you've done this, I think is what makes you stand out and build more of that trust. But my last thing I want to hit on, we were just talking about real stock, right? Because our company stock went up, and Logan bought some, as soon as I mentioned it, he bought a little bit. So he bought some back in the day, and went up today. And we were talking about how it's cool to watch your net worth go up without doing any work. Like, you start investing and stuff, and if you track your net worth often, you get to watch it grow separate from the work and income that you're driving, that's when wealth building gets really fun. And then he looked at me and he was like, yeah, it's great seeing it go up without having to do any work. And then realized, I'm like, wait a second. I've done a ton of work to help that stock go up, right? I've done a ton of work to help that stock go up. But there's a thing to be said here, which is, I guess we can call it forced appreciation. I don't know if you have a better term for it, but I think one of the biggest things that people miss is that your best opportunities are ones that you have an ability to add value to yourself. Like, I invest passively in Logan's deals and some apartment deals and whatnot, and it's fine. Like, Logan's deals crush it for me. He's the man. Other deals are great. They give me a return. But if I ever want to really make a massive impact on my wealth, I need to invest in things that I know I have a unique ability to add value to. That's where the biggest returns are. And so, what's your experience been with this value add investing? How would you explain that to people?
The value add investing, I'm getting a good deal in the beginning, so I'm picking up equity there, but I also have the ability to influence what happens after that. So it's very similar to the way you're in the real stock. You get some stock participating in the company. You also have the ability to buy some on your own, and you're not using any special insider information. You're working in the company and you believe in it and you buy more stock. And when you look at a lot of big companies, when you see high level execs doing the disclosure that they're buying more stock, that's a really good incentive because they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they really believe it. That was one of the reasons that I decided to invest in it early on. One of the reasons, I think we were looking at it originally, and it was like 50 cents a share, something like that, or maybe 30 cents a share on the Canadian exchanges.
30. Yeah.
And there were a couple of things I liked about it. One of them, it was a new upcoming company that seemed like it was going to have a little different perspective on a model that's starting to get some traction. Also, I like buying things at a really seemingly good price. A lot of companies, when they get value, they can get up to many dollars or $20 or $30 or more a share. This was a very low price point. So even today, at more or less $3 a share, very low. You can get a lot of shares, and the odds of it just collapsing are very low. So when it starts to really rise, it can make a difference in multiples. So for example, when we're buying at 30 and 50 cents a share, dude, I can get 10,000 shares for $3,000 at the time. I did. And then I went back again and got another 10,000 shares for $3,000. At that point, I'm in at 20,000 shares for $6,000. Well, today it's worth at $3, that's 369. So 9x from those original purchases. That's a great multiplier. And it's got a lot of room to go. But I felt good about it.
I know, but this wasn't a direction that I was thinking about, but
Right,
it's kind of
sorry.
true.
Yeah.
No. But no, it's funny. It's perfect. It's perfect in that I think you saw what I was doing and you were like, oh,
Yeah.
I trust Tim. I've
Yeah.
known him for a while. I trust his judgment. He's doing it. I'm going to
I
invest
believe
in,
you're going to continue to work at the same rate
yeah.
you did, but I've seen you to be increasingly more effective as you grow your skills and your relationships, your network and your reach. And I thought, man, there's such a small amount of agents in the beginning. If they do anything what Tim's saying that he thinks he's going to do, well, it should affect the company. And I personally believe with the percentage of agents that you've helped recruit, I believe you've single-handedly affected the stock price, not because any special information before a big event or whatever. You're just putting in that work and we're watching the growth. And I think it's a great opportunity.
But I think it's the same thing as when you call me with a development deal. I'm like, dude, Gary Vee always says he bets on jockeys, not the horse.
Yeah.
I'll bet on Logan any day of the week, And so I bought Disney stock when Bob Iger came back in. I'm like, oh, all right, good job. I don't know if that was a smart bet. I haven't looked at that price in a little while, but I think too, it's like betting on good people, because I think that so many times when, as you progress in investing and people start sending you things to invest in, I'll look at this apartment deal in, Phoenix, and numbers look great. Looks like could be a great deal.
They always look good on
But I
paper.
but I care way more about the person doing the deal than I do the deal. And, I think that is so much of investing successfully is one, the deep value stuff, all that jazz. I really try to only do multifamily that is undervalue, like we're buying it for less than what it's worth for whatever reason. And then I'm always looking at the team. Like I would say it's the team first. Like it has to be a team I believe in, I trust, they have a track record of success. And then are we buying something for less than what it's worth?
Yeah.
But I do think though, back on my original point, which you diverged from, is this idea of investing in things that you have an advantage in. That, I love it. Somebody will call me and be like, hey man, are you buying Bitcoin? And look, Bitcoin may go up maybe like 200 grand in a couple of years. I don't know. But what I do know is I have no effect on the price of Bitcoin.
Right.
Like I can't make the price of Bitcoin go up. And I don't know. I have no super knowledge of the ins and outs of it, of why it would go up or why it would go down. I just don't know it. And I think, investing in things makes you better at investing in those things, and you get better returns in the long run.
I think a lot of people get this bright, shiny object syndrome and they say, I'm going to put my money over here because other people talk about it. It sounds cool. They're betting on a different horse. And while they might have bet on the right horse, if you believe in yourself and you've had some amount of success and a decent track record, using that money in your own business that you can affect, for example, you working in real or with real, you know where it's going. You have an intimate knowledge, you believe it, and you come to work every day to help build that. Well, I've got the same thing. I don't put a lot of money into outside investment. A large part of it goes back into my company or very closely held private companies that I'm somewhat connected to. And I can say decisions I have with the board actually affect the way that company goes. And I got a string of good decisions. I want to bet on the best winning horse that I know. And that's me.
I love that. The bet on yourself is one that usually pays off in the long run. And, don't get me wrong. When Logan was blowing all the money and didn't have his life together, that it is what it is. But I think if you continually bet on yourself,
Yeah,
you start to win more and more.
you get
And so
better.
some people are like, man, they look in the mirror, they're like, I don't want to bet on that guy. But the more you bet on yourself, the stronger you get in these things, the more you learn,
Yeah.
the more, and then, I think you come out the other end more of a winner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's put it in a different perspective. Betting on the right horse does matter. Maybe you're a kid that inherited a bunch of money and you're not that bright. You're not good at anything. You're an artist and you realize you don't generate a lot of money. The next step from that is look at people that you know, look at people that have a track record, look at people that you trust. These are really common sense decisions. And folks forget that when someone says, hey, come invest in my Amazon store that's going to make you this exponential return and you do nothing. Your common sense would tell you, don't know. So using
Well,
common sense to apply to this, whether it's betting on you or somebody else, the common sense matters as much as anything.
yeah, and I do think too, it's usually, and this again, this is just in my experience, and it's fun because everybody's got different experience. The more you can learn from your own and learn from others, the better. But you said you went through all the what ifs when you look at a deal, which we're going back to the beginning of the pod. And I think that most people, when they run into a bad deal, there was something in their gut that probably had a little red flag go off. But then we also get this emotional thing of, oh, you got to invest, you got to do the thing. Don't let this little red flag get in your way, which I don't think is right. I mean, it's this balance between taking action, but not taking crappy action. And so I think if we look at it, go for home runs. Go for home runs. Be picky. The thing that I like about being picky, like you were saying, where you said no to a bunch of deals and only focus on the home runs,
Yeah.
is if you're picky, you look at a lot more deals. And guess what happens when you look at a lot of deals?
Get better.
You get better at looking at deals.
You know what?
And so, yeah.
A saying I say a lot is, and I learned this from a mentor, the best deal I ever did is the one I didn't do. And it sounds counterintuitive, man. And when you're looking, and you looked at 10 or 15 and you keep telling them no, it can be discouraging and you can just jump out and make a poor decision. But I'll tell you, the deals that I didn't do, I get to watch them and learn how well did they do? How poor did they do? What exactly happened with that asset class or that operator? That is really worth a lot too. And when you finally start to make a decision to do one, you've hopefully spent enough time watching and learning that you make better decisions.
And, it's funny, you're an example of that for me. I had just invested in, I think it's going to be a pretty good deal, apartment deal. It's good. 2 weeks later, you called me with a great deal. And I'm kicking myself for investing this other. I'm like, I wish I saved every dime we had to put it into the home run, And so, yeah, I mean,
I remember saying, I don't have anything right now. If you're jumping to get it working, get it out there. But if you hold tight, something will eventually pop up and right around the corner, here you go. That happens.
Yeah. But I love that. It's such a good thing that the best deal I ever did was the one I didn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's, and I don't know if that's going to ring true with people, but there's a ton of truth in that.
Look, the last thing I want to do is lose money or get into a bad deal because I talk to people all the time. Everything is so bad when that happens. They're disappointed in themselves. Their spouse or their close friends are disappointed in them. They're actually going to lose some of this hard-earned money they worked for. And when that starts to happen, it almost seems so obvious at the moment. I should have known. You got to calm down. You're better off watching a whole lot of things happen and not get involved for a while. And some people say, just take action. Well, you can go ahead and do that if you want, but you learn a lot from watching for a while. So, be fast to look at a deal, but be slow to pick the one to do.
I like it. I want to try to put a bow on this thing, and give just kind of some main points to walk away with. One, value those relationships and grow with people because they're the best relationships. But one of the things that you said that I loved was we have radically different views and opinions. Embrace people that think differently than you do because that's how you'll grow. I've changed a ton around my investing mindset from learning from you. And I like to think like I may have pushed your perspective in different ways as well. And like we've grown together. The second thing is buy good deals. Buy good deals. Don't in one little thing that you said that we breezed over was you said you don't try to make a deal, you find a deal. And so many times when something comes across, you're like, oh, my second cousin owns this house in Alabama. And I think if I did this and I did that, and then maybe if I rent it out, and I'm trying to invent a deal. And it either is a deal or it's not.
Yep.
When you get into trying to invent a deal and make the numbers work, they either do or they don't. And the more you can take that perspective, the better. And then my biggest thing is being curious, which I know everybody's tired of hearing. But every chance you get, be curious. Somebody comes to stage the house. How's the staging business work?
Yeah.
How many trucks do they have? Where do they get their furniture? How often, how many houses does this furniture stay in? When did that thing get started? Every interaction you have is an opportunity to learn something. And what else you got? What do you want to put a bow on?
The part about that is when you're curious and interested, you start to get into that How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and people start to like you. And one of the most valuable resources that we have is the other people on this planet, the humans. So by being interested and curious, people, strangely enough, start to like you because you show a genuine interest in them. So there's a lot of things you learn a lot, but you also start to build a relationship by doing that. Some of the best people I've been around, they don't know anything about me hardly because I'm so busy asking these interesting questions about them, their business, their experiences. And the strange thing is they don't know anything about me, but they walk away and like, man, I like that dude.
And then what's funny is they find out that you're actually pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
now they like you even more because they're like, man, this dude could have talked about himself the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's awesome stuff. Any other last little things you want to leave people with?
You know, I don't know, man. I think the biggest thing we talked about here is just being curious, kind of betting on yourself a little bit, build a lot of relationships with people, and try to be as transparent and honest as you can possibly be. People can sense that, and it can change the way you do business and the way people circle around you, connect to you, become part of your life. It changes absolutely everything around there.
Yeah, and I love the thing that we hit on too, which is the thing that you're avoiding in the conversation is the thing you should take head on.
That's true.
And
Absolutely.
it's not comfortable, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be with it. And I think you'll find that it works out a lot better in the long run.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Logan Fullmer on Instagram, that's the place to get him. And you should definitely get him. I also like following his Facebook because he writes these nice long posts. But yeah, one of my favorite guys in the investing space, Logan Fullmer. Thanks for being on, man.